The following is an exclusive presentation of VIC Sports. Do you like sports? Are you on the edge of your seat for every game? Do you enjoy hearing people argue? Well, then this is the show for you. Welcome into Sports Journal, VIC's weekly sports hotspot. Our three analysts are in studio ready to break down the exciting week of sports we just had and take a look at what's coming up down the road. We'll get you up to date on all the action here on the South Hill.
Foley breaks one tackle, and he has an open field. He's at the 10, the 5, touchdown, Bombers!
Everybody in Ben Light on their feet. Into Amidi, right back to Jeffers. Going coast to coast, blocked by Tom Sweeney, and that's the game!
And we'll also take a look at D1 colleges around the nation.
There goes Davis! Oh my God! Davis is going to run it all the way back! Auburn's going to win the football game! Auburn's going to win the football game!
10 seconds for the final four. Harrison, that shot's the... Oh, he's made it! Oh, Revert was right in his face.
And of course, pro sports as well.
They've got Ortiz. Hard hit into right. Back at the wall. Tie game! Big Poppy!
Durant pulling up. Firing! Scoring! With 1.5 seconds left. He's done it again!
So get ready.
You've got 10 seconds!
Because here it is.
5 seconds left!
Sports Journal starts right now on VIC Radio.
Yes, this is Sports Journal. Sports Journal. Here on VICradio.org. I'm Alex Long. I'm here with Frank Altieri and John Blake. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
I am great. It's a great day for sports.
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great right now. Just like you guys. Great. So we got a full show for listeners today. We're going to talk some IC sports. Obviously, NBA, NHL playoffs are going on today. MLB and maybe a little NFL talk later too. But obviously, first, got to start here at home with Ithaca College lacrosse. They're on fire this season. Both teams are really just tearing it up. The men's team yesterday they won 22-11 over Alfred. The women's team in their last two games, 23-1 over Alfred, and then 18-2 over Utica.
Two Empire 8 conference games, too, in that Utica win coming just this morning in a dominant performance over Utica. So they're 7-0 so far in the Empire 8. So, I mean, they're just taking over the conference, really. I don't think there's anyone that can stop them there.
Ithaca overall has just been basically filleting Alfred University. But both the men and women's programs have just been run so well this year. And, the women's lacrosse team, like you said, 23-1 over Alfred and 18-2 over Utica. They're on a roll. Three games ago, they did lose 7-15 against Hamilton. But, that's the one thing that this team... I guess all three of their losses, or three of their four losses rather, have come on the road. So that seems to be sort of an Achilles heel, is losing on the road.
Also, that loss against Hamilton that you mentioned, Hamilton is ranked number 11 in Division III, so that is not an easy game to play for them. So it's not like it was a really bad loss. And then they lost 11-9 against SUNY Geneseo, and that's another tough team there. So it's not like they've had any bad losses. They're all close games. They were all against tough teams. Number 1 against SUNY Cortland, number 3. So they've lost to some pretty top-notch teams here. It's not like they're just throwing games away.
And they'll finish the season out against St. John Fisher College. That should be a good game. And we'll see how many players they play to close out the regular season.
I mean, they've just both been so dominant right now. If the season were to end at the end of today, they'd both be locked into the number 1 overall seed in their respective E8 tournaments. Obviously, there's a few games left for them to play, but I don't see them, either team, giving up their hold over the number 1 overall seed. Looking at the stats for the men's lacrosse team yesterday, you had Jack Shumway, 5 goals. He leads the team with 37 on the year. John Janaskowicz, 7 goals. Him and Jake Cotton are both tied with 30 in the number 2 slot. Obviously, you've got that defense led by, guys like Scott Sidnam, Eli Gobrick. You look at the women's team. On the year, Riley Marion is lighting it up. 43 goals. She scored yesterday. Morgan Rascott has 35 on the year. She scored 6 yesterday. And like I was telling you guys earlier off the air, the women's lacrosse team, they're doing it without probably their best offensive player in senior Allie Runyon. She was over 60 last year. She's over 60 as a sophomore. She scored like 40-something as a freshman. So the fact that they're still able to put up some of these high-scoring games, like we said, is just, it's fantastic that they're able to share that sort of wealth.
Yeah, it just shows both programs, the men and women's lacrosse programs here at Ithaca College, they all have very deep rosters and they recruit very well. I called an Ithaca men's game a couple weeks ago, and they won 19-2 over Houghton with all freshmen and sophomores. It was ridiculous, and that was all of their opposition's best starters, a lot of juniors and seniors on that team. So, Ithaca just has a very bright future even after, the Shumways and the Cottons are gone. So, it's very fun to watch, and these are going to be 2 great teams to see in the postseason here at Ithaca.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what they've got in store in the postseason. It's not far-fetched to say that they could make it all the way and even win it all. These are just because we look at them last year and they were still very good, but this year it just seems like they've totally eclipsed prior teams. It's unbelievable how good they've been this year,
and they're blowing out great teams.
Yeah.
A lot of their biggest wins have been against respectable teams.
Yeah,
the men's team taking down number 2 RIT last weekend. That was incredible. That was a big game for them.
Big game,
and it was a close game all the way. They ended up winning by 2, but it was that was a big game for them, and I think that probably gives them a lot of confidence heading into the Empire 8 tournament, knowing that they can take down the number 2 team, and they're ranked highly themselves. But that was RIT's first loss of the season right there, and that just gives them a lot of confidence heading into these final 3 games of the regular season. And they won 22-11 against Alfred yesterday, and they have 2 more games in the Empire 8 to finish up before the E8 championships. But they're in great shape right now.
That's the other thing I like about this team is they can win the tight games as well. Like you said, RIT, that was their first loss of the season, and they won 18-16. So Ithaca can, squeeze out those tight games against really good teams, or they can just blow them out and completely outsmart them. So I honestly think it's more important to win these tight games against good teams, because that's what the playoffs are going to be like. It's all going to be competitive. Rarely are you going to see a team just get the doors blown off them. So I think Ithaca is they're peaking right now, but you want them to kind of continue to peak in the playoffs. Yeah. You want to peak too soon. Yeah. So it'll be interesting what they do in the playoffs. We don't want them to be what their best is, and they kind of slump in the playoffs.
We're definitely seeing them near the peak. I still think they can blow right past that, though. The proof is in the pudding. They've been so good this year that their peak isn't. I'm not even sure it's even close to where they're at right now.
Yeah, they're hitting their stride at just the right time, in my opinion. And you mentioned those close games that they're winning, just grinding out games. Earlier in the season, they had a big win against Cortland, 18-12, and Cortland has really had their number in the past couple years. It's been a while since Ithaca has been able to beat Cortland. So in terms of a morale standpoint, that was another big one for them. They were able to pretty much take control of the game throughout the entire second half and pull away from Cortland, and that's just another big game for them, along with the RIT game that was just last week.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking for lacrosse teams, certainly, even the baseball, softball teams, to make some noise as the postseason approaches. But right now, we're going to kick it over to the Extra Point. It's Pat Taylor talking a little NHL.
Sometimes even the most ideal situations don't turn out as planned. Patrick Waugh, coach of the Colorado Avalanche, helped his team to 2 terrible, unsuccessful playoff chases, only to watch the boys lace up in April while sitting on the 18th green. And even though he's only been the coach for 3 seasons, he really should think about his own job security. But first, let's face it, the Colorado Avalanche are not going to fire Patrick Roy. The fans love him, and his jersey is sitting in the rafters right above the bench. It'd be a really difficult decision to let go of the 4-time Stanley Cup champion. Once you break down some of the decisions he's made, such as the personnel he's brought in on defense, Nate Ginnon and Nick Holden just to name a few, you can see that his decision-making needs some work. And he's also lost the locker room. He called out Matt Duchene for celebrating his 30th goal of the season. That was the first time Matt Duchene had reached that milestone in 9 seasons of work. He's celebrating his hard work. Leave him alone. And maybe instead, watch those defenders who keep giving turnovers like they're free samples at the food court. Wad doesn't have the reins on this team anymore. Even still, the Avalanche will not consider firing Patrick Roy. But they might want to if they ever want to think about making the playoffs ever again. With the extra point, I'm Pat Taylor.
Free samples at the food court. I like it.
That was a great line. Thank you, Pat Taylor. That was, to never make the playoffs again, that's kind of a hot take, but that's exactly what we want from the extra point.
Yeah, I don't know. Never again is kind of a bit of a statement coming out here saying that they'll never make it again. That's kind of a long time, I'd say, but that's a bold statement.
Yeah, talking about Patrick Roy, obviously he was a legend with the Montreal Canadiens, and I know since I'm a Bruins fan, he didn't play while I was watching the Bruins, but you're sort of conditioned to not like him because of that rivalry. But we'll talk NHL a little bit in a bit. First, we're going to get into the NBA, the playoffs underway.
Certainly a lot to talk about.
Yeah, currently happening right now. Quick update at halftime. Golden State, Houston, down in Texas, are tied at 56 at the half. It's been an outstanding game so far.
The Warriors early on in the first took up to a 10-point lead, maybe even more. And then at the end of the first quarter, Houston came storming back to tie it at the end of the first. And then they even took a lead at one point, and now at halftime we're tied again at 56. But it's a very good back-and-forth game so far, so we'll see how that goes.
And Steph Curry had an injury towards the end of the half where it looked like he got his knee caught and he was rolling around on the court. So we'll have to see how that turns out. That could spell disaster right there. And honestly, Houston could win this series if Curry is non-existent. This team is very deep, and that's why they won a championship last year, is because of their bench, along with Curry. And obviously, Iguodala was MVP. But at the same time, I still think this Houston team could win this series if Curry somehow is hurt and out for the rest of the season.
Just his presence on the floor, because obviously he hasn't played every game this series with that injury, but just him being out there, especially in this game, I thought that it would pay dividends to the Warriors, because just his presence, you have to respect what he does as a player, because obviously right now he's the best player in the NBA, bar none, I'd say. But just even if he's not 100%, just him being out there, it really makes you, it opens up the floor for everyone else if you're paying so much attention to Steph Curry.
I'd say so, and that's just a lot of speculation saying that he might be out for the rest of the season, but obviously it didn't look like a very good injury as he was rolling around on the floor. He kind of went into a little bit of a split with his knee twisted a little bit, so it looked ugly, but we'll have to see if he comes back to play in this game. We'll probably get a report on his injury soon after the second half begins, I would imagine, which should be any minute now. But
I was talking more like worst case scenario.
Yeah. It's a little early to tell in that situation, but hopefully he'll be able to come back and play. Although the Warriors have shown that they can beat the Rockets without Curry, but as far as continuing, moving on in the playoffs, having to play against most likely the Spurs, if everything goes as we assume it should, then they would most likely face the Spurs in the Western Conference Championships, and doing that without Curry would be quite the challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as what I was saying with Houston could win. I don't even really foresee that. I think it's possible. I mean, Houston squeaked into the playoffs as a 500 team. I mean, they were 41-41 this year. So, yeah, either team, Golden State or Houston, trying to play San Antonio with the experience and the way they've been playing this year, that would be a no-go right there.
Yeah. I mean, Houston, if you guys remember, there was a Houston area TV station that when they did get into the playoffs, they ran that poll about how the first round would play out, and 100% of voters voted they would lose to the Warriors in the first round. It was hilarious to see.
That being said, though, the Toyota Center is electric right now at halftime, or they were going into the half. That the Rockets were able to at least bring it to a tie so far. So they may have voted that they would lose to the Warriors, but who wouldn't say that they would lose to the Warriors? Honestly,
they have a solid fan base. At the same time, I don't think they're in denial. Like, they're probably going to lose. Especially, what did this team win? 73 games?
Something like that. 73 and 9.
Yeah, 73 and 9. So it's run into a brick wall,
Exactly. I mean, just looking at the quarter breakdown, I mean, something that you don't see very often, both teams had 29 points at the end of the first and then 27 at the end of the second. I just thought that was kind of interesting that they really did match each other. They went shot for shot, and they were matching firepower the entire game so far.
But the interesting thing is both teams kind of went on like 10-point runs, and then that 10-point run would get matched with another run. So, there was a time where Houston was up by they were up by 5 or 6 after being down by 10. So this has definitely been a back and forth battle, and this has been with a Steph Curry who has been hurt and just got hurt again. So this is a really interesting game, and the Golden State Warriors just started out with a 3-pointer to start the third quarter. But this is definitely an interesting game going forward for the rest of the half. I think it could go either way, especially if Curry's not out on the floor.
And the third quarter here just getting underway from Houston. And according to Calvin Watkins of ESPN, Curry did not have a limp as he walked out onto the court, and he was shooting around in the warm-ups before the second half. So it looks as though he's going to be okay.
Yeah, he was wearing I think he wears 2 knee braces, doesn't he? Yeah. So that definitely helped. But when that video just started going all over Twitter, that vine of him going down, and that was ridiculous. I thought he was done.
Clutching the knee definitely didn't help the reaction. But
no, he was rolling around a lot. He was rolling around on the floor out there too. So that probably didn't ease anyone.
But I mean, right now he only has 6 points. Iguodala is leading the Warriors with 13. Klay Thompson has 11.
Iggy.
Yeah, I mean, Curry's leading the team in assists right now with 5, which is, that's fine. But I mean, he really should pick it up. I know he's probably not 100%, but
these aren't Steph Curry numbers we're used to.
Curry, at least put up like 15 for me. I'm not asking for like a 45-point game to match James Harden. I just want like 15. That's it. On the other side, Dwight Howard already has a double-double, 14 and 10. You got James Harden 13 points. He hit at the end of the first quarter that it was a Steph Curry shot.
That was a deep 3 if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
He was probably about 25 feet out, I would say. It was pretty good.
It was
nice.
quite the feat.
Just pulled up and drained it, which I guess if you're going to have anyone on the Rockets to do that, it would be James Harden, I suppose. But
the only person I could think of on the Rockets to do that is James Harden.
It was very Curry-esque, I would say. Golden State now leads 61-57 with 10:36 remaining in the third quarter.
Looking over to the East now, I think we already know Cleveland's going to wrap things up against Detroit.
Poor Detroit.
I would say they have zero chance, especially now going down 3 games to none.
They had no shots. I mean, Cleveland right now, it's urgency time. It's either do or die. They have to win a championship this year, or it's going to be rough.
Yeah.
LeBron might even be gone if they don't win a championship. The Atlanta-Boston series is going to be really good. That game's tonight.
Yeah, 6 o'clock.
So I'm looking forward to that. And then also Miami and Charlotte. It's a 2-1 game. Miami has control right now, but I think Charlotte could make a run.
Yeah.
That's pretty close. I know they are the last show on. You were saying how the first round has been relatively boring. I would half agree with that. I mean, we saw San Antonio blow out Memphis.
Yeah. They swept that series.
Sweep rather. But we do have some good series here. And as a Raptors fan, I'm a little biased, but Toronto and the Indiana Pacers tied at 2 games apiece. And honestly, they if the Raptors don't make it past the first round this year, they are officially the Cincinnati Bengals of the NBA. And it pains me to say that, but it's just, last year's disaster against the Wizards and the year before that, after all the smack that was talked going into that series versus Brooklyn, and Brooklyn ended up putting up and winning in Game 7. So Toronto really needs a playoff win. They need to at least make it to the next round. But they're a very young team. It's not like this is an old team that's running out of time. This is a really young team. But DeRozan and Kyle Lowry need to get it done.
They really need to get it done. And there's no reason that the Raptors should be tied in this series with the Pacers. The Pacers have Paul George, and that's really their only bright spot, I would say. They had a decent regular season, but nothing spectacular. And the Raptors were just on top of up in the top 2 spots with the Cavaliers.
Yeah, they're number 2
in the East. Sorry, excuse me. And DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry are a lot to blame, I would say, for this so far in this playoff series. They really need to get it together. They are shooting 30% from the field throughout this series, and that is the lowest shooting percentage of any starting backcourt in the playoffs right now. And I think if they can get it going, then they'll be just fine. But I don't think there's any reason they should be tied with the Pacers right now.
Well, the other thing is what Game 4 was pretty terrifying. They lost by 17. I mean, the Pacers completely took care of business. So really, it's tied right now, but the momentum is really with Indiana. So, Toronto really needs to just start playing their game, which is, they play good offensive basketball, and Lowry and DeRozan are those, that doubleheader, that tandem that gets them out of bad situations and also, overwhelms other teams, and that's why they're the number 2 seed in the East. So Game 5 is going to be a huge game, and if Indiana wins Game 5, I could totally see them taking the whole series.
Yeah.
Because especially how convincing this win was in Game 4.
Yeah, it could be an absolute backbreaker.
Yeah, this next game is going to be big for the Raptors, and I think that they're going to need to really pull it together, Lowry and DeRozan. Going back to the Detroit and Cleveland series, Cleveland is obviously going to win. I don't think the Pistons have any chance. But that first game was actually, the Pistons put up a fight, and obviously the Cavaliers had a bit of a shaky ending to the regular season. They were up and down all over the place. LeBron James didn't really look like LeBron James. So although they should win this series, it'll be interesting to see how they do in round 2 against either the Celtics or the Hawks, whoever end up winning that one. Yeah. But possibly the Cavaliers getting a little confidence and getting back into the swing of things against the Pistons, that could help them a bit, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You kind of said it all.
The thing is with this Eastern Conference, I don't want to say it's all just semantics, but we know it's probably gonna be Cleveland representing in the NBA Finals. I mean, would I like to see Toronto? Yes, but it's probably not going to happen.
Would I like to see Boston? Yes.
That would be cool. I mean, I loved those. I honestly, I will admit it, I was kind of a bandwagon Celtics fan in the mid-thousands. It wasn't like a bad thing. Like even when they kind of fell off, they traded everyone away, I was still a fan of the team. I still like the team. But that Celtics team with KG and Paul Pierce and Ray Allen and when Rondo came in, Rondo really emerged when they went to that second NBA Finals against LA.
In 2010.
That was a heartbreaking loss. I got so invested into that team because that was such a fun team to watch. So I think it would be cool to see Boston. And I know they're in the same division as Toronto, but I still find myself always rooting for Boston. Yeah. It's a great franchise.
It's a really likable team this year, too.
It is. There's not one guy on the Celtics team right now that you can really say, like, oh, he stinks. Like, they could really get rid of him. It's
annoying,
a full team. Yeah. It's a full team effort. Like, every NBA team has their own superstar, like with Cleveland and LeBron James or Golden State and Steph Curry. But with the Celtics, it's really like every guy steps up to the plate every single night, and they're all huge contributors to the team, with Isaiah Thomas leading the way and the new coach in Brad Stevens, and he's just been terrific with them so far. They've been just spectacular.
Yeah, their motto this postseason, because now every team comes up with like their little motto for the postseason. The Celtics is literally one superstar, as in like the whole team, one superstar, instead of, because the whole thing is they need a superstar, they need a closer, or finisher, which I agree with. But
they could use one. Isaiah Thomas is the closest thing they have so far.
I really like the fact that they're sort of all in with this. This whole team is the superstar sort of thing.
And really, that's kind of how they were with Doc Rivers, though. I mean, even during the time of KG, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen, I mean, remember Eddie House and Scalabrine?
I had an Eddie House shirt.
And Big Baby Davis. Like, they always had... they always had a really decent bench that were able to, when those stars needed to rest a few minutes, they came in and they did the job.
Yeah.
I mean, I will never forget that playoff series against Chicago. I believe that was 2009.
Yeah.
That was just amazing, and that was probably the best NBA playoff series I've ever seen.
Yeah, it is up there. Definitely.
And that was obviously a year where Derrick Rose was actually healthy.
Yeah.
So that was
rarity.
The Boston team under Doc Rivers was so much fun to watch, and they're fun to watch now.
Yeah. And injury report is official for tonight's tip-off at 6 p.m. Avery Bradley obviously still out for the Celtics with that hamstring. Kelly Olynyk is going to play, even if he's not 100%. I'll still take a 50% Kelly Olynyk
over nobody.
Over no Kelly Olynyk.
Yeah.
Then for the Hawks, Dennis Schroeder's out and Kent
Really?
Bazemore's out.
He hurt himself in the last game?
Schroeder and Bazemore are both out.
I was unaware of that. This will be a big game for the Celtics then, especially at TD Garden, too.
They have to win this one.
They do, and they had to win last time. And we were just talking about how the Celtics don't really have a superstar player, but in Game 3, Isaiah Thomas really took on the role of a superstar with 42 points, a career high, and the Garden was just absolutely electric. Yeah. And it would have been very hard, I think, for the Hawks to come out of that building with a win. But Avery Bradley being out and Jay Crowder being a shell of his former self with that ankle injury, and Marcus Smart has been up and down with his injuries as well. All of these injuries are really starting to add up, I think, for the Celtics, and we saw it in Game 1 and Game 2, where it's a full team effort with any one of these cogs being taken out of the big of the overall team. It's going to affect the team a lot, and I think you're seeing it with Avery Bradley, but they did a phenomenal job in Game 3 of filling in the pieces with Terry Rozier and R.J. Hunter really stepping up to the plate, I think.
And I mean, because the whole thing is Brad Stevens had finally found, the equation, the formula, because it was, starting Avery Bradley and Isaiah Thomas right off the bat, and then you've got the second squad with Evan Turner and Marcus Smart. They brought that sort of different energy. Now with Bradley out, you got to start, either Turner or Smart or Rozier, like you said, in that starting role. It sort of messed with that role. Or the roles that everyone was already playing. They just gotten over the hump with figuring out like where everyone fit in. So it's nice to see at least that Isaiah Thomas is still Isaiah Thomas and is gonna score even without Avery Bradley on the floor.
Another big contributor is Evan Turner. He's been huge.
He was great last game. A couple nice ankle breaking moves, big time shots.
Yeah, he stepped up big time in the last game, and I think we'll see the same thing out of him and Isaiah tonight, hopefully. That would be ideal, and they need to win this because I don't think they can go back to Atlanta down 3-1.
No,
but if it's tied, I think they have a really good chance.
Especially because Atlanta, we've already seen as sort of like a house of horrors for them, and going back down there with only one win and needing to win multiple games down there is going to be like.
Isn't that hilarious how even in all sports, sometimes teams just don't have an easy time winning in certain buildings?
Oh, yeah.
Even look at New England. They can't win in Miami as of late.
Yeah, which is odd because the Dolphins are not really very good.
It's really only been the last, 2-3 years, but still, it's
never easy.
It's never easy, and it's stretched to the certain amount of time where you can finally say it's a thing now. It's not, just coincidence they lost 2 in a row. They need a win at home tonight.
Absolutely.
Quickly about the Miami and Charlotte series. Miami took a quick 2-0 lead in the series, but then Charlotte stormed back with a really, really dominant win in Game 3, much like the Celtics and Hawks series, which was good, I think. Jeremy Lin had, I don't know how many points, but he had a really good game. And I think it would be good to see Charlotte win another in this series. I don't know that they can actually win the series, but I'd like to see them win 2. Maybe take it to Game 6.
Yeah. So right before we get to the NHL, we're going to get to that really quick. Quick update. Golden State now leading Houston 72-65. Just over 7 minutes left in the third. I think it's safe to say now that, the 10-point swings might still come into play, but I feel like they're going to end up pulling this out. They're going to pull out the series, but on the off chance that Golden State ends up dropping this game, dropping the series, it's not far-fetched to say that the Celtics murdered them. That's all I want to say about that.
And Steph Curry will not return to tonight's game. He headed back to the locker room after warming up before the second half. So the Warriors are without Curry again for tonight's game, and we'll have to see about Game 5. But
all right. So I'll take that the Celtics just murdered Steph Curry. That's fine. So now we're
Prez in the building.
Yeah. We're going to switch it over now to the ice. NHL playoffs are underway as well. Earlier today, the Washington Capitals knocked out the Philadelphia Flyers 4-2 in that series. Philly, they put on a spirited comeback the past couple games, but
I thought they did a really nice job against the Washington Capitals, who have just been fantastic in the regular season. Really, really good.
The Capitals have been unbelievable.
There wasn't really any point in the season where they weren't the best team in hockey, and I thought that the Flyers came in here obviously as huge underdogs, and I thought they did a really, really nice job of just bringing it to the Capitals. And in this Game 6, the Capitals won 1-0. It's not like they blew them out in this game. They've had a couple of close games, and I think that they can pat themselves on the back for that because the Capitals are obviously the better team, but they did a really nice job.
That's the thing with even the city of Philadelphia and the Flyers. They're not going to pat themselves on the back, especially with those fans. And as a Flyers fan, I can relate to this. This team has been, even really the Flyers, the Sixers, and the Phillies overall it's been such a nightmare last few years in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's been a rough go of it.
Yeah, and Philly, I guess I have to throw them under there as well. They haven't made the playoffs in 2-3 years? 4 years maybe.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So, this is a city that loves their hockey team, and this is a team that's been at the top over the past 6 years. But they have a lot of work to do over this offseason, and I knew the Caps would win. I'm actually surprised the Flyers put up as much of a fight as they did. But it will be a long off season for the Flyers. But I think they're definitely on the right track. I think it was a decent end of the year, and the Caps are just a really, really good team.
Yeah, and the sentiment amongst a lot of Philly fans, at least that I've seen and talked a little bit with, is that the Flyers sort of barely got into the playoffs. They weren't the team that were supposed to win this year. The fans are really looking forward to the future. They've got a bright future with some young players and some prospects that are supposed to be very good, but just the fact that they got in, they weren't supposed to do that.
They barely snuck in. It came down to the final regular season game for 3 teams to see who would make it.
Yeah,
the Red Wings and the Flyers coming out on top. But so I think that they did a really nice job.
Yeah, the whole 3 teams things. If you talk to the fans that were in Philly for the past couple games, they'll say the atmosphere has been great. We weren't supposed to make it anyway, so just being there, and longtime owner Ed Snyder passed away right before the series started, so the tributes to him in Philly were great. It was great to have hockey in Philly, at least for that. Obviously, they did want to win, but just being there and having sort of that thing to look forward to was definitely great for the Flyers and their fan base.
Moving on to round 2, the Capitals and Penguins should be a really good series.
Ovechkin and Crosby, they've got the Penguins have Malkin back. That's a marquee matchup. That's
going to be a good series. And they met in the playoffs in 2009, several years ago, with the Penguins winning that series in 7 games. And Sidney Crosby had a huge series, as I believe. I don't know that it'll turn out the same for them this time, but it's going to be a good series to watch.
These are arguably 2 of the best teams in the NHL right now. The Capitals, obviously, they were the best team the entire regular season, but the Penguins are really hitting their stride right now.
Yeah, I was saying this earlier. I think whoever wins this series is going to represent the conference in the Stanley Cup. So
I just don't see the Lightning or the Panthers or
Same.
whoever else,
I just
or
don't,
the Islanders.
I do not see any of those teams be able to take down either the Caps or the Penguins. And I just think this is the Capitals' year. I mean, they've fallen short in the playoffs so many years in a row, and I think they're the best team in the league, and they will win the cup. But I think this will be a game or a series rather that goes down to 7 games. I think we could see being tied 3-3 and winner take all game 7.
Exactly. Looking over now to the Western Conference, third period, Dallas is up on Minnesota 4-2. The Stars lead that series 3-2. So it's looking like they're going to advance. Again, you never know what's going to happen, but
the Wild have about 13 minutes left in their season if they can't turn things around.
Yep.
Although that being said, the Stars were leading 3-0 after the first period and then 4-0 after the second period. So the fact that it's 4-2 right now shows that the Wild have a little bit of fight in them. And we'll see. They have some time left to turn it around, and we'll see if we can do that. I would like to see that. I like the Wild. I think that Minnesota could use a good team. Or a team that they don't really have much going for them over there. So I would like to see the Wild.
The Vikings are on the rise. I mean, if they're, and I honestly don't blame the kicker for this. I know we're going to get off topic here for a second. It was the holder. Whenever a kicker is going to kick the laces straight on, it's not going to go in. I don't care if it's an extra point or a 60-yard field goal. So if the holder could do his job, the Vikings probably would have won that game. So the Minnesota Vikings are a solid team, and I think Bridgewater is the best quarterback they've had since Favre. And I'm talking 09 Favre, not that threw 39 touchdown passes, not the 2010 Favre that fumbled the ball every time he got a snap. Yeah. But back to the NHL. Another series I was looking at, and the Ducks are one of my favorite. They're my favorite West Coast team. They started out the series down 2-0, and they have won 3 straight games in this series. Are looking to close it out tomorrow at 8. I think this team has done such a phenomenal job of keeping their head in the game, and they're on a roll. I mean, it's tough to win 3 after being down 2-0 in a playoff series to win 3 straight.
Yeah, that's impressive. And so they're now leading the series 3-2. And who are they up against in this?
The Predators.
Okay, Nashville. Well, they're not really. I don't know. It's not against a great team, but I feel like the Ducks should win this series. The fact that they went down 2-0 doesn't really show much about.
Yeah, the Ducks are the 1 seed, and the Predators are a wild card. So the fact that they were down 2-0 is. There's really no excuse for that.
Yeah.
But
they really should win the series.
And whoever wins this takes on the Sharks. And the Ducks and the Sharks, that's going to be a great series. The Sharks are just one of those teams, they're not going to win the Cup, but they're always going to be in the playoffs. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, they're always consistent. They're always in the playoffs, but they can't make that push to be a championship team. Yeah. A good friend of mine is a Sharks fan, and it's always frustrating. I know he's always frustrated. They can't make that. That push to the top because they're always in that good. You're going to be in the playoffs every year, but you're not like the Caps or the Penguins where you're a championship threat. So, with that being said, I think if the Ducks can close this out tomorrow and take a 4-2 win over the Predators, I think we're going to have a great series. Ducks and Sharks. I think we could see another 6-game, 7-game series. So I think round 2 hockey, we're in for a lot of great entertainment.
Yep.
Let's talk about the Blues and the Blackhawks for a couple minutes here. Yeah. That's a great series going on in the West over there. St. Louis led the series 3-1, and Chicago had their backs against the wall, obviously, in 2 games, and they managed to pull it out in Game 4. Who was it? Patrick Kane with a double overtime winner to keep them alive, and then another very close game in Game 5, or Game 6, excuse me. And so now the series is tied 3-3, and we're going to see them play Game 7. And if you had to ask me right now, I would pick the Blackhawks. Even though they were down 3-1 in this series, they clearly have the momentum, and the Blues weren't able to put them away early, and I think that was big.
Yeah, I would agree with that. When you give up a 3-1 lead in the playoff series, you'll lose your edge, and it's proven that Blues have lost their edge, the fact that they gave up that lead. But when I think the team coming back now at 3-3, some would say, it's tough to keep that up to win that fourth game. But the other hand is, you've completely taken that mental strength away from the team that you're trying to catch up with. And the Blackhawks are so experienced. I mean, they've won Stanley Cups as of late. I don't see the Blues being able to close this out. And I think the Blackhawks, at the end of the day, experience is going to do them well.
And that Game 7 is going to be, the atmosphere is going to be electric just surrounding that game. Because, it's Chicago-St. Louis. That's obviously, it's a city rivalry. You've got Blackhawks, Blues. Those teams don't like each other. The coaches don't like each other. The fan bases don't like each other. It's going to be a fantastic game to watch. Going back here in the Empire State, down in the city, the Islanders and Florida Panthers, 7 p.m. tonight. Islanders are up in that series 3-2. Last game, it was a phenomenal one, too. Overtime winner from Alan Quinn. Thomas Greiss, who sort of came out of nowhere for the Islanders, in overtime stopped the penalty shot from Alexander Burkov, and really gave the Islanders that sort of extra push that they needed to go on and win that game. The Panthers would be a great story. They've got Jaromir Jagr, who obviously wants to play until he has to go into a grave. But
ageless wonder. It still blows my mind that he's still in the league. But he's
and
so
he can
fun
still
to watch.
play so well.
Yeah,
surprisingly, for what is he, 40, 41, 42?
I want to know what his diet is like. What is he doing that's keeping his body not brittle? You know what I mean? He's got to have some kind of a special holistic approach to the game. Maybe similar to what Tom Brady does, to be able to play this high of a level. And the hockey is such a physical sport, so to be able to play at this age is really
it's not like baseball or being a football kicker. He's out there getting hit every night, so that's
skating. I mean,
really impressive.
He's still physical. He's not the fastest man on the ice, but he's still able to keep up.
Yeah. He's got the IQ to know that he doesn't have to go as fast because he's going to know where to be. He can sort of outsmart other players, and
that's a great point. Yeah,
experience is the best teacher.
Exactly. So,
quick update for you: the Wild have scored again, so it's now a 4-3 game with 9 minutes and 39 seconds remaining. This is a good one. They went down 4-0 in a game that they absolutely have to win, and they've scored 3 unanswered goals so far. So this is very, very interesting.
It's a great year for hockey.
9 minutes left in that game.
Playoffs.
We'll see how they can. We'll see how it closes out, but that's a very good game. You might want to turn that on if you're not watching it already.
But keep us on while you watch it.
At the same time, you want to hear our commentary.
Yeah, put it on mute. Put it on mute and then listen to us.
You can multitask. It's easy. All right, so that's going to wrap up our playoff talk. We're going to kick it over to the top 5. We've got fan favorite Jake Goldberg. Sort of an unorthodox top 5, but that's what we love around here. So we're going to kick it right over to him.
With the NFL Draft coming up this week, and it's the year 2016, here is my top 5 NFL players that were taken 16th overall in the NFL Draft. Number 5, he's made his presence in the secondary for Arizona, Philadelphia, and currently the New York Giants. He was drafted in 2008 by the Arizona Cardinals, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. Number 4, this defensive tackle had a 12-year career with the Jets, Broncos, Chiefs, and the LA Raiders, who drafted him in 1992, Chester McLitton. Number 3, in his 14-year career, he had over 10,000 receiving yards. Most of his playing days were with the Washington Redskins, but the New York Jets drafted him in 2001, Santana Moss. Number 2, in his 12-year career, he was NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 2010. He's been on multiple Super Bowl winning teams, and some say he had the best hair in the NFL. Drafted by the Steelers in 2003, Troy Polamalu. And finally, number 1. He is considered one of the, if not the greatest wide receiver to play the game. He has the record for the most receptions and touchdowns, as well as receiving yards in NFL history. He is a 13-time Pro Bowler and 3-time Super Bowl champion, drafted 16th overall in 1985 by the San Francisco 49ers, Jerry Rice. This Thursday, the NFL Draft begins, and the Detroit Lions select with the 16th overall pick. With the top 5, I'm Jake Goldberg.
All right, thank you, Jake Goldberg. Again, always love to hear from Goldberg. He's legendary around these parts, to say the least. So, obviously, with NFL Draft around the corner, that was a very topical one. We'll get to NFL Draft free agency thoughts in a second. I just want to mention real quick some MLB action today. Earlier, the Mets beat the Atlanta Braves 3-1 in some real nice NL East action. In the AL East, Tampa Bay over the New York Yankees. I mean,
8-1.
It was 8-1. Yankees stink. It was 8-1.
They are not good this year. I don't know what's up.
Pine Tar Pineda gave up 5 runs in the first.
It's wonderful to watch.
Yankees stink. And then tonight...
So far, there's about 150 games to play, so...
No, trust me, they stink.
I think they can turn it around, but I'd like to see them stay in the basement
right,
where they are.
I would. Yeah.
And then tonight, in your ESPN Sunday Night Baseball game, 8 o'clock, Red Sox down in Houston taking on the Astros. Henry Owens' first start for the Red Sox this season. He's been lighting it up in Pawtucket so far this year.
He's allowed 1 earned run in 18 innings pitched in 3 of his starts, so hopefully he can translate that to the professionals. I don't think he liked very much being sent down to Pawtucket in lieu of Stephen Wright coming up to pitch. He won the starting job in the preseason, so I don't think Henry Owens liked that very much.
Well, now he's got a chance to prove himself, which is... I'm looking forward to it. I like Henry Owens. He's a good guy.
I'm a fan of him, too. I think he can be really good, and I hope that we hang on to him because we could really use it.
Absolutely. All right. So, like we mentioned earlier, with Jake Goldberg's top 5, we're going to talk a little NFL draft, maybe some free agency thoughts. Obviously, the draft kicks off this Thursday. And there's 2 guys really that have been mentioned as number 1 overall picks. You've got Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, both quarterbacks. You had the Philadelphia Eagles made that crazy trade.
They gave up the all of their houses, the firstborn children of all their starting players. That was the most mind-numbingly stupid trade I've seen in a long time. I mean, they traded all, and this is a team. This isn't like the Eagles have a very stout defense, and it wasn't like a team like Houston that had a lot of good pieces but were missing a quarterback. The Eagles are very thin. Defensively, they're weak in the front 7. They don't have great corners or a secondary. There's no place defensively where they stand out. And not to mention, at the wide receiver position, they have Ruben Randall, and that's really about it. They don't have a ton of targets
Riley
to throw
Cooper.
at. They cut him.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
They did a few months ago.
Wow.
So, this is a team that needs all of those picks to build, not just one pick. And, it's not like you have, and I'm going to say Andrew Luck. I think Andrew Luck is kind of a gunslinger, and he throws a lot of interceptions, and yes, he does have a lot of pressure, but it's not like you have Andrew Luck or Cam Newton or a Peyton Manning-like player sitting at the top slot. I'm not really sold on Wentz. I think they're okay. They have potential, but I'm not sold on either of those top picks at quarterback. So this is really just altogether a stupid trade, and Cleveland really... I think they did just fine. I mean, they still have the 8th overall pick, and they have all those extra picks going forward. So I think Cleveland really made out reasonably well, and Cleveland isn't known for making smart choices anywhere, especially at the free agency or the draft.
I don't know. A lot of people... I tend to agree with you where I think it was a bad move for the Eagles to trade up for the number 2 pick, but a lot of people seem to like the move. It's kind of back and forth. The last time that the Eagles had the number 2 pick, they drafted Donovan McNabb, and that worked out pretty well for them. But like you mentioned, they had all the other pieces in that scenario, which they really don't have here. I agree. I think it was a bad move. I think that Cleveland stole a lot of picks that they're going to use. And, I mean, it's not just picks from this year. It's year after year after year. I think they gave up 3 picks next year. Their first-round pick in 2018.
Yeah, it goes all the way to 18.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't a good move, I don't think. But they must have someone really specific in mind. Yeah. I'm thinking maybe Carson Wentz.
It's whoever doesn't go number 1 is going to be their guy, I feel like. I don't think they have a certain guy penciled in. I think it's just these are the two guys, and whoever falls to us is who we're going to take. Obviously, Sam Bradford was not happy about it.
He has no excuse, though. There was a huge headline, Sam Bradford is frustrated. He has no excuse to be frustrated. He didn't do anything last year. He turned the ball over consistently. They didn't go to the playoffs. You know, he wasn't smart with the football. So he has no excuse to be frustrated. It's not like he threw 35 touchdown passes, the Eagles went to the playoffs, and it was a solid year. Like, he did not play well last year. He has no excuse to be frustrated. The other thing is, you know, let's say they draft Carson Wentz. They still have that weak defense. I mean, how good is Carson Wentz going to be if he's, you know, always going to be, you know, put on the you know, the pressure's going to be on him because the defense,
Put in a 20-point
defense.
You got Southern on.
I got really Southern, yeah, because the defense, you know, just is giving up 30 points a game. Yeah. So, with that being said, this is the Eagles. That's a disaster waiting to happen. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. You can draft a great quarterback, but if you are weak in all other areas, it's not going to help them out.
Yeah.
Other NFL news: Robert Griffin III going to Cleveland. So they have that.
I love how we keep talking about Cleveland today.
Well,
but no, it's a big story.
They're
I
making
agree
big
with
headlines in the past couple of weeks. I mean, they've kind of been known where quarterbacks go to die for their careers to kind of come to a grinding halt. But
Cleveland and Oakland is where quarterbacks go to die.
Oh.
Not anymore. Oakland is nice. I think they have a shot at going 10-6.
Oakland's not nice, but the Raiders are nice.
Yeah,
you know
yes.
I mean?
The city of Oakland is not.
No offense, Oakland, but
yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. I just meant before Derek Carr, and which was just a steal that they drafted him. That was that is the best quarterback they've had since Rich Gannon. And this is an Oakland team franchise that has been so awful since losing the Super Bowl in 2002 to the Buccaneers. So, yeah, that's the thing is Oakland used to be, I mean, Dante Culpepper went there to die. We thought Carson Palmer was going there to die, but then he's worked out very well in Arizona, even though last year's playoff performance wasn't stellar. But, yeah, I totally agree with you, John. Yeah, Cleveland... So I think the quarterbacks go there to end their careers on a bad note, but at the same time, they draft really poorly. I mean, look at Brandon Weeden,
Johnny Manziel. That worked out really well for them, didn't it?
What was the guy they went 10-6 with in 2007?
I don't even know. There's
Derek
been too
Anderson.
many.
Derek Anderson, remember that the Cleveland Brown hype after that season? They went 10-6, missed the playoffs by a tie. And they had Braylon Edwards. I remember that 2008 season, their season opener was against Dallas. That was when Dallas was supposed to be good. And that was just a disaster. Yeah. Anderson played bad. That was when Braylon Edwards had the most drops in a season, I think. That's when he fell from, in 2007, he was the third best receiver in the league behind Moss and T.O. And then he just fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
So. Browns President Sashi Brown stated that just because they now have RG3, that doesn't mean he's going to start. He said, quote, "We have Connor Shaw and Austin Davis and Josh McCown here competing along with Robert, and that's what we want to provide, which is competition at that position." So, I don't know.
Competition is that's kind of an exaggeration. I think it's like, what would you rather be poisoned, stabbed, or like thrown off a cliff? Like either way, you're winning 6 games at most.
It's going to be the saddest competition
6
ever.
games. That's a generous.
You think I'm being generous?
That's generous.
Likely, you're looking at 4 or 5.
Vegas slated them to go 0-16 preseason predictions. 0-16 because if you look at their schedule, let's just take a look for a second. If you look at their schedule, where do you see a game in which they're gonna win? What game do you look at and any of their opponents and say, "Oh yeah, that's a winnable game for the Browns"? They have to play the AFC East.
Ironically, their first game is against Philadelphia.
Oh, what a train wreck!
That's gonna. Yeah, they have a shot at winning that. Honestly, Baltimore week 2. Baltimore's going to be back. I think their last year was terrible, but I think they'll be fine. They'll lose against Miami. They're playing Washington, New England. New England should crush them again.
Tennessee is not a good team, but they should, with Marcus Mariota, I think they should win.
Honestly,
Cincinnati,
you're
no.
right. Honestly,
New York, no. Dallas, no. none of the
3-13. Now that I'm looking at the schedule, I haven't looked at Cleveland's schedule. That's not really like, oh, let's all look at the Browns' schedule because I bet they're going to be awesome this year. But I totally agree with you. I think I was a little generous with that 6-game.
Yeah, none of the
3-13. That's
they have to play the AFC North twice, obviously, and I don't think they're going to win any of those games against Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. They have to play the AFC East. I don't think they're going to win any of those games. Really, they're just terrible.
That's bad.
But that's okay.
Looking over to the bottom to now the top of the National Football League, New England, without a first-round pick because of the ridiculous, moronic process that is Deflategate. New England, I think this will be a very diverse draft for them because I think they're gonna be looking at offensive line, corner, and halfback. Yeah. And I could see them draft a receiver. I want them to draft Braxton Miller, but I don't see them. Awesome. I don't see him being there
in the second round.
in the second round. Also, I could see them going with like a corner because right now,
Malcolm Butler.
Butler is great.
Logan Ryan.
But Logan Ryan improved this year, but I still don't trust him.
They could use an upgrade on the other side across from Butler.
Yeah, yes. I think so.
Yeah.
The problem is that outside of a few guys who are going to go in the first round, you've got Hargraves from Florida, who's probably the top, at least in my mind, cornerback in the draft. Outside of him and a few others who are going to go before the Patriots draft at 60 overall, there's really no one that jumps off the page.
This isn't a great draft.
Yeah, I've been saying all along that this draft is already because you got Braxton Miller, Ezekiel Elliott, Joey Bosa, but at least from the Patriots' perspective, I'm looking to next year when there are at least 3 guys that I've seen this past college football season that I think would fit fantastically with what the Patriots do. You've got obviously Christian McCaffrey, who is an absolute animal for the Stanford Cardinal. And then on the UNC Tar Heels, you wouldn't think of them as a very big football school, at least not until this past season. But you've got Ryan Switzer, who's a small slot receiver who's in the same mold as like a Danny Amendola or a Julian Edelman.
Or a Chris Hogan. They have plenty of those. I don't think they need another one of those.
Chris Hogan isn't really a slot guy. He's 6'1", 200, and he got a fair amount of deep balls for Buffalo last year. So when you look at this receiver depth chart, I think Chris Hogan is going to do really well. You're obviously going to have Edelman, who's going to be in the slot, but he can play outside as well.
Amendola.
I'm not an Amendola guy. I think Nate Washington is a huge steal.
I forgot about him.
I did too.
I think he can catch about 600, 650 yards this year. But I think he will. If he has a good training camp, he could bump Amendola out, no problem.
And then
having high picks in the draft has never really been a problem for the Patriots. So I don't think they're gonna. I mean, it would be nice to have a pick in the first round, but I don't think it's going to affect them too much, especially with all the offseason moves that they've made so far.
Yeah, and just going back, the last guy that I was going to talk about was Mac Hollins, also from UNC. 6'4", a burner. He's got average hands, but it's something he could definitely work on. Those 2 guys, Switzer and Hollins, watch for them this next college football season because I guarantee you they're going to be two breakout guys that I'd really, really like the Patriots to take a look at in the draft next year because I'm assuming they're going to have a first-round pick. You never know with Roger Goodell, but if they can draft in the first round next year, I'd really like to see them take Switzer or Hollins, depending on who comes and goes before the draft happens.
And Aaron Dobson is just completely taken up a roster spot.
I forgot about him.
I don't think he's still on the roster, is he?
He is, unfortunately. This is going to be his last year to prove himself. If he is not consistent this year, or if he gets hurt again, he's done. That's why I wanted them to draft Braxton Miller and then boot Aaron Dobson because he has 0 route running skills and he drops almost everything that comes his way.
I was so hyped about him too when they drafted him because there was that.
He was great at Marshall.
There was just that one highlight of him catching the ball in the back of the end zone. It was like the ODB catch before Odell Beckham made that catch, just a one-handed snag in the back of the end zone from Marshall. And I was so high on Dobson after that one play, and I didn't look at any other clips of him because I was young and naive. And he's just been such a letdown. I can't believe it.
I'm surprised that they got rid of Cameron Tompkins and didn't get rid of him too.
Yeah,
I don't know. Those two guys, I don't think they're really at the top of the Patriots' concerns. They have plenty of people that can that can play ahead of them, unless, of course, they have the injuries that they had last
That's
year.
what I'm
but
saying.
with Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola and Chris Hogan and Nate Washington now too, I think they're going to be fine. I don't think we need to really worry about Aaron Dobson unless we have a ton of people go down.
Yep. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for us here on Sports Journal. You should stay listening, though, because you've got the John and Lebo Show. John Sokoloff, Alex Lebowitz, Adam Probst with them. Going to give you some fantastic fire sports takes right here on VSCRadio.org. For Frank Altieri and John Blake, my bad. I'm Alex Wong. This has been Sports Journal on VSCRadio.org.
So just talking